2 years married to a millionaire who never touched her, until the day he saw her talking to another man and discovered what jealousy felt like for the very first time. What that powerful magnate did when he realized he was losing his invisible wife changed everything forever. Before we begin, subscribe to the channel, leave your like, turn on the notification bell, and boost the hype on this video. This helps the channel grow and brings these stories to many more people who also need to hear them. Let's go together. The alarm rang at 5:45 a.m., just as it had every morning for the past 24 months. Marienne Shoreheart opened her eyes slowly, taking in the soaring ceiling of the master bedroom in the West Vancouver mansion. The fine coastal rain of the Canadian West Coast tapped against the panoramic windows, creating a melancholic soundtrack for yet another day of orchestrated solitude. Beside her, separated by a carefully maintained distance of exactly 1 meter, Ronan Ravencourt slept with his back turned to her. Even in unconsciousness, his body held the posture of rejection. 2 years sharing the same king-size bed without ever touching. 2 years of a perfectly choreographed cold routine. Marienne rose with care, her bare feet meeting the warmth of the imported marble floor. The mansion was an architectural masterpiece, glass walls embracing the spectacular view of English Bay, minimalist Scandinavian furniture, contemporary art pieces placed with strategic precision. Beautiful, refined, and utterly devoid of life. She descended the floating concrete staircase to the professional kitchen, where she prepared her solitary breakfast at exactly 6:15. Always at 6:15, because at 6:30 Ronan would come down, and they had an unspoken agreement. No eye contact, no unnecessary conversation, nothing that could accidentally create intimacy. "Good morning, Mrs. Ravencourt," murmured Maribel Hollinger, the housekeeper, entering the kitchen with practiced efficiency. "Good morning, Maribel," Marienne replied, forcing a smile. At times, these were the only words she spoke out loud before noon. Through the window, she saw the meticulously maintained Zen gardens, where each stone, plant, and element was precisely where it should be. Nothing out of place, nothing too alive, just like her. Marienne took her porcelain cup, the same one every day, decorated with delicate cherry blossoms, and climbed quickly to her office on the second floor, her sanctuary, the only space in the house that felt truly hers. There, surrounded by books on sustainable architecture and urban design, she spent her days working as a freelance consultant for ecological construction projects. It was what remained of her dreams. Before the marriage, Marienne had been on the verge of accepting a position at a prestigious architecture firm in Toronto. But then came the proposal, the arrangement, the solution to her family's financial downfall. Marriage to Ronan Ravencourt, CEO of Ravencourt Development Corp., a real estate empire that raised skyscrapers all along the West Coast. In exchange, her father's firm would be absorbed, the debts settled, the bankruptcy avoided. 2 years later, she still remembered the wedding day, an impeccable ceremony at the Fairmont Hotel, imported flowers, French champagne, 200 guests dressed to perfection, and 2 strangers at the altar exchanging vows that echoed hollow, like sound in an empty cathedral. Marienne checked the digital clock on her computer screen. 6:28, 2 minutes. She heard Ronan's footsteps descending the staircase, the hum of the espresso machine, the refrigerator opening and closing. His routine was as predictable as hers. At exactly 7, he would leave through the garage door in the black Tesla. At 1900 hours, he would return. He would dine alone in his office or attend a business meeting. At 23, he would come upstairs, shower, lie on the opposite side of the bed, and the cycle would begin again. 24 months, 730 days, 17,520 hours of enforced coexistence, and they had exchanged at most 50 real sentences in all that time. Good morning, good night, excuse me, thank you. Polite stranger phrases, nothing more. Marienne opened the project she was working on, a sustainable residential complex in North Vancouver, but she couldn't focus. Her fingers hovered above the keyboard while her mind drifted. How could someone feel so alone while sharing a house with another person? How could a human being become so invisible to someone else? She remembered being young, dreaming of love. She had never expected a fairy tale, but she had expected something. Early morning conversations, shared laughter, the small, everyday intimacy that builds a life together. Instead, she had a glass mansion overlooking the ocean and a husband who treated her like expensive decor, necessary to complete the environment, but never truly seen. Her phone vibrated. A message from Marienne. "Mr. Ravencourt has left. There is fresh coffee in the kitchen whenever you would like it." Marienne sighed. Another day of forced peace had begun. She worked non-stop until noon, immersed in blueprints and energy efficiency calculations. When she finally paused for lunch, she found a tray left by Marienne on the small table by the door. Caesar salad, sparkling water, fresh fruit. Everything perfect. Everything tasteless. The afternoon dragged in silence. Marienne finalized the structural analysis of a project, answered client emails, reviewed budgets. Work was the only thing that still made sense in her life, the only realm where she existed as a real person, with opinions, knowledge, worth. At 6:45 p.m., she saved her files and closed the laptop. She went down to the kitchen, where Marienne had prepared a light dinner. The housekeeper always made 2 separate meals, one for Marienne, another for Ronan. Even in food, the distance was preserved. "Marienne, you may go home early today," Marienne said gently. "I will take care of the kitchen." "Are you sure, Mrs. Ravencourt?" "Yes, enjoy your evening." After the housekeeper left, Marienne ate alone at the Marble Island, watching the city lights begin to glow through the windows. Vancouver at night was, magical. Golden lights reflecting on dark water, black mountains carved against an indigo sky, beauty wrapped in solitude. She was washing the dishes when she heard it, the unmistakable sound of the Tesla entering the garage. 7:15 p.m., 15 minutes earlier than usual. Marienne's heartbeat quickened for reasons she could not explain. Something was different. She heard the garage door close, footsteps in the hallway, but instead of the familiar sound of him heading straight to his own third-floor office, the steps stopped. Silence. Marienne dried her hands slowly, each movement deliberate as she tried to steady the sudden rush of nerves. Then she heard something she had not heard in exactly 24 months. Footsteps moving toward the second floor, toward her office. Her heart raced. She froze in the middle of the kitchen, the towel still in her hands, listening as the steps came closer and closer. They stopped right in front of the office door. 3 soft knocks. "Marienne," his voice. Ronan rarely spoke her name. It was always good morning or nothing at all. But now he stood there, on the other side of the door, saying her name with a hesitation she had never heard from him before. Marienne hurried up the stairs, taking a steadying breath before opening the office door. "Come in." The door opened slowly. Ronan filled the room with the same commanding presence that dominated boardrooms and sealed multi-million-dollar deals. At 34, he had piercing gray-green eyes, dark brown hair always perfectly styled, and a strong jaw framed by a neatly trimmed beard. He wore a charcoal gray suit that emphasized his broad shoulders. But something was different today. His shoulders looked tenser than usual. He ran a hand along his jaw before speaking. "I need to talk to you." The words came out formal, controlled, typical of him. But there was a barely perceptible crack in his voice. "Of course." Marienne closed the laptop fully, giving him her complete attention for the first time in months. Ronan stepped into the office but didn't sit. He remained standing near the bookshelf, as if he needed a physical barrier between them. "There is an important event tomorrow night. Victoria on the island. International investors interested in the new Sustainable District project in False Creek." He paused, his tone shifting slightly. "I need you to come with me." Marienne blinked several times, processing the words. In 24 months of marriage, this was by far the longest conversation they had ever shared. "You want me to go with you to Victoria?" "It's important for the company. These investors value stability. A married man conveys confidence, long-term commitment." Ronan finally met her eyes. For a moment, just a moment, she saw something beyond the executive mask. "It is just an event. One evening." Marienne felt a strange mix of anger and something she couldn't quite name. After 2 years of being treated as if she were invisible, suddenly she was useful? And why should I agree? The question came out sharper than she intended. For the first time, Ronan looked genuinely surprised by her reaction. His gray-green eyes widened slightly. "We are married," he said, as if that explained everything. "On paper." Marienne rose from the chair. Only on paper, Ronan. You have ignored me for 2 years. You treat me as if I were an expensive piece of furniture in this house. And now you need a decorative wife to impress investors? The tension in the room shifted entirely. It was no longer the habitual silence between them. It was something charged, heavy, filled with words unsaid for years. The plane leaves at 2 in the afternoon, he said at last, reverting to his executive tone. The event begins at 7. We return tomorrow morning. Marienne watched as he moved toward the door, but something inside her, something that had been dormant for far too long, made her speak. Ronan, he stopped without turning. The next time you need me as an accessory, at least have the decency to ask, instead of simply informing me. She saw his shoulders tighten. For a moment she thought he might say something, but Ronan simply walked out, leaving behind only the subtle scent of an expensive woody cologne. Marienne remained alone in the office, staring at the closed door. For the first time in 24 months, she was absolutely certain that something fundamental was about to change. The question was, for better or for worse? Marienne woke the next morning with a strange sensation tightening in her stomach. The gray Vancouver dawn filtered through the windows, carrying with it the distant sound of seagulls and the briny scent of the ocean. She remained lying there for a few minutes, processing the conversation from the night before. Ronan had asked something of her. For the first time in 24 months, he needed her for something other than signing documents or appearing in occasional photographs for the company's annual reports. But what intrigued her most was not the request itself. It was her reaction, the way she had confronted him, questioned him, set boundaries. Something within her had awakened, a version of herself she believed long lost. Marienne rose and took a long, hot shower. As the water cascaded over her shoulders, she made a decision. If Ronan wanted a wife to display, she would be exactly that. But she would not be the silent, invisible version he had molded. She would be Marienne Shorehart, the talented architect, the respected professional, the woman she had been before becoming Mrs. Ravencourt. After dressing in comfortable clothes, dark jeans and a beige linen blouse, she headed downstairs to the kitchen. Ronan had already left. Of course, even after asking her to accompany him on a trip, he maintained his routine of avoiding her. Marienne prepared toast and green tea, eating slowly as she watched the rain begin to fall over the garden. At 10 o'clock, she went upstairs to the bedroom and opened the closet. Most of the clothes there were choices made by Ronan Ravencourt. Her mother-in-law had impeccable yet predictable taste. Neutral tones, classic cuts, nothing calling too much or too little attention. Everything carefully curated to project appropriate wife of a successful executive. But in the back of the closet, still with the tag attached, hanging inside a protective garment bag, was the dress Marienne had bought 3 months earlier in a moment of rebellious impulse. She had been walking past a boutique in Gastown when she saw it in the window, and for the first time in years stepped inside and purchased something simply because she wanted it. Marienne removed the dress from its cover, deep petroleum blue, the color of the ocean on stormy days. Italian silk that slipped through her fingers like water. A discreet yet elegant V neckline, 3/4 sleeves, a cut that embraced the body without exaggeration. It was sophisticated yet full of personality. It was her. Perfect. She selected medium-heeled nude shoes, a small brown leather clutch and minimalist jewelry, just pearl earrings and a thin gold bracelet. None of the ostentatious pieces Verena had gifted as a welcome to the family gesture. At 1:30, Marienne was ready. She wore a simple travel outfit, black tailored pants and a gray silk blouse, but carried the blue dress carefully folded inside a garment bag. No large suitcase. Ronan had said they would return the next day. At precisely 1:45, a black limousine stopped in front of the mansion. Marienne descended the stairs with the garment bag and a small handbag. Maribel was in the hall, adjusting a bouquet of fresh flowers on the console table. "Boa viagem, Mrs. Ravencourt," the housekeeper said with a warm smile. "Obrigada, Maribel." The driver opened the rear door. Ronan was already inside, as expected, laptop open on his lap, fingers flying across the keyboard. He wore an impeccable navy suit, a charcoal gray tie, his usual battle armor. When Marienne entered the car, he looked up for exactly 2 seconds. "Good afternoon. Good afternoon." Then silence. The driver closed the door and began the drive toward the airport. Vancouver drifted past the windows, gleaming skyscrapers, the lush green expanse of Stanley Park in the distance, the North Shore mountains shrouded in mist. Marienne gazed outside, aware of every key Ronan pressed, every controlled breath he took. The tension in the air was palpable, different from the usual emptiness. It felt as though they were both suddenly aware of each other, in a new and uncomfortable way. 20 minutes later, they arrived at Vancouver International Airport, but they did not head to the main terminal. The driver turned toward a restricted area where private hangars housed corporate jets. The Ravencourt Development Corp jet gleamed beneath the weak sunlight struggling through the clouds, immaculate white with graphite gray accents, the company logo discreetly displayed on the tail. It was smaller than commercial jets, yet it radiated luxury and power. "Mrs. Ravencourt," greeted the pilot, a middle-aged man in a perfectly pressed uniform. "A pleasure to have you on board." Marienne offered a polite smile and ascended the retractable stairs. The interior of the jet was exactly what she expected. Light beige leather, polished cherry wood, soft indirect lighting. 6 reclining seats arranged in 2 rows of 3, a small meeting table, and in the back a door likely leading to a private lavatory. Ronan was already seated near the window, laptop open again, Bose headphones resting around his neck. He had removed his jacket, which now lay neatly folded on the seat beside him. Marienne chose the seat across the narrow aisle, close enough to maintain the appearance of a couple, far enough to preserve personal space. She stored the garment bag in the overhead compartment and placed her handbag by her feet. The takeoff was smooth. The pilot announced that they would arrive in Victoria in approximately 40 minutes, enough time for Marienne to read a few chapters of the book on biomimicry and architecture she had brought, and for Ronan to review what seemed like endless contracts. Throughout the entire flight, neither spoke, but Marienne could feel it. The silence had a different quality. It was no longer the comfortable void of mutual indifference. It was awareness, tension, as if 2 wild animals were sharing territory for the first time. At one point, she lifted her eyes from the book and found Ronan looking in her direction. He looked away immediately, returning to the laptop screen, but not before she caught the expression, confusion, perhaps, or curiosity. When they landed at Victoria International Airport, a black Mercedes was already waiting on the tarmac. The driver, a younger man in a discreet uniform, held the door as they climbed inside. "Straight to the Fairmont Empress," Ronan instructed. The drive to the hotel took 20 minutes. Victoria was different from Vancouver, older, more British in its architecture. With a Victorian charm, Vancouver had long since traded for modernity. Tree-lined streets, flowered, gardens even in March, historic buildings carefully preserved. The Fairmont Empress rose majestically against the overcast sky, an imposing Edwardian facade, ivy climbing its honeystone walls, Canadian and British flags fluttering in the wind. The hotel dominated the inner harbor, where sailboats and yachts swayed gently in the water. Tourists took selfies in front of the historic building as the Mercedes stopped at the VIP entrance, discreetly separated from the main one. A manager, dressed in impeccable attire, a black suit, burgundy tie, and a gold nameplate on his chest, appeared immediately. "Mr. Ravencourt, Mrs. Ravencourt, welcome to the Fairmont Empress. I hope you had a pleasant trip." "Thank you, Harrison," Ronan replied, recognizing the manager by name. Clearly, this was not his first time staying there. They were escorted directly to the private elevators, bypassing the front desk entirely. Harrison accompanied them personally to the top floor, where only 4 suites occupied the entire level. "The royal suite has been prepared, according to your specifications, sir," Harrison said, opening the double doors with a gold keycard. Marienne stepped inside and had to admit, it was breathtaking. A spacious living room with authentic Victorian furniture, a marble fireplace, and enormous windows offering a privileged view of the inner harbor. 2 side doors led to separate bedrooms, each with its own marble bathroom. Of course, even while traveling, the distance between them remained firmly in place. "The event begins at 7 o'clock at the Victoria Conference Center just a few minutes from here," Ronan said, finally looking at her. "It is 2:30 now. You have plenty of time to get ready. 4.5 hours is more than enough, Marienne replied, surprising herself once again with the firmness in her own voice. Ronan hesitated, as if he might say something else, but he simply nodded briefly and disappeared into his room, closing the door behind him. Marienne entered her own room and shut the door. She took a deep breath, letting the composure she wore like armor fall away. The room was beautiful. A king-size canopy bed carved in dark wood, a gold silk bedspread, authentic Persian rugs, and a chaise longue near the window. She hung the blue dress in the closet and walked to the window. The view was spectacular. The inner harbor with its colorful boats, the British Columbia, Parliament building with its green domes in the background, the Olympic Mountains fading into Washington's misty horizon. Marienne pulled out her phone and checked her messages. There was an email from a client about an ongoing project. She answered quickly, keeping her mind occupied. Then she opened her music app and put on soft instrumental jazz. Miles Davis, her favorite soundtrack for moments of reflection. At 4 o'clock, she took a long, hot shower. The bathroom was a masterpiece. Carrara marble, a Victorian clawfoot tub, a separate shower with multiple jets, luxury amenities and elegant packaging. As the water cascaded down her tense shoulders, Marienne allowed her mind to wander. Tonight would be different. She could feel it deep in her bones. For 2 years, she had been the invisible wife, the silent shadow existing only at the edges of Ronan's life. But tonight, she would be seen. And more importantly, she would be heard. If Ronan Ravencourt wanted a wife to impress international investors, he would have exactly that. But she would not be the domesticated, silent version he expected. She would be Marienne Shorehart, in the full brilliance of the talent and intelligence he had never bothered to discover. At 5:30, she began to get ready. The teal-blue dress slid over her body like water, embracing her curves without constriction, falling just below her knees in an elegant and timeless length. She pinned her long, black hair into a low, loose chignon, letting a few strands frame her face strategically. Discreet makeup, a light foundation, mascara to enhance her dark lashes, a touch of rosy blush on her cheekbones, nude rose lipstick on her full lips. She did not need much. Her natural beauty spoke for itself. Pearl earrings and a thin gold bracelet completed the look. Marienne looked at herself in the full-length mirror, and for the first time in years, perhaps since before the wedding, she genuinely liked what she saw. This was not the decorative, submissive Mrs. Ravencourt. This was Marienne, simply Marienne, and she was more than enough. At exactly 6:45, she opened her bedroom door and walked into the suite's living room. Ronan was already there, standing near the fireplace, checking something on his phone. He wore an immaculate black tuxedo, perfectly tailored to emphasize his broad shoulders, crisp white shirt, black bow tie, Italian leather shoes, polished to a mirror shine. When he heard her footsteps and lifted his gaze, something shifted. His gray-green eyes widened almost imperceptibly. His jaw tensed. His fingers tightened around the phone. For a second, just one, the perfect mask of control that Ronan Ravencourt wore every day cracked. He was seeing her, truly seeing her, for the first time in 24 months. "Are you ready?" His voice came out rougher than usual. "Ready," Marienne replied, walking toward him with measured, confident steps. Ronan slipped his phone into the inner pocket of his jacket and offered his arm, a formal, almost old-fashioned gesture. Marienne accepted, feeling the solid tension of muscle beneath the expensive fabric of his tuxedo. They left the suite together. In the elevator, they stood side by side, facing the polished brass doors, each keenly aware of the other's breathing. The tension between them was nearly tangible, not uncomfortable, but charged with something new, anticipation. When the doors opened into the lobby, Marienne lifted her chin and squared her shoulders. The game had begun, and this time, she would play to win, on her own terms. The Victoria Conference Center had been transformed into a gala hall worthy of a European architecture magazine. Swarovski crystal chandeliers cast warm amber light over tables adorned with white and gold floral arrangements, orchids, lilies, peonies, interspersed with tall candles and silver candlesticks. The polished marble floor reflected the lights like a mirror, creating the illusion that the guests were gliding over a luminous surface. Executives in impeccable tuxedos and women in haute couture gowns, moved through the room with glasses of Veuve Clicquot champagne, conversing in English, German, French, Mandarin. The air smelled of money, power, and refined ambition. Marienne entered the hall beside Ronan, and immediately she felt the attention converge on them. It wasn't discomfort, it was recognition. The attractive couple. He unmistakably in command. She elegant and enigmatic. For the first time in years, Marienne allowed herself to exist beneath those gazes, not as a shadow, but as a presence. Ronan, finally. A tall man with graying hair and thin-rimmed glasses approached with a warm smile. He carried the distinguished air of someone born in European castles and raised negotiating in multiple currencies. His German accent was thick yet refined. "Ulrich?" Ronan replied, shaking the man's hand with respectful firmness. "Thank you for coming all the way to Victoria. I know it was a long trip from Frankfurt. For a project of this magnitude, every hour on the plane is worth it." Ulrich Vandelstrom turned to Marienne with genuine interest. "And this must be the famous Mrs. Ravencourt about whom I've heard so little." There was a subtle critique in his words. Ronan clearly never mentioned his wife during negotiations. "Marienne Ravencourt," she said, extending her hand with confidence. "It's a pleasure to meet you, Mr. Vandelstrom. I've heard a great deal about the sustainable projects your firm has developed in Germany. The integration of photovoltaic solar panels into Berlin's historic facades was revolutionary, especially considering the restrictions of architectural heritage." Ulrich's eyes gleamed with immediate surprise and respect. "You're familiar with the Mita project?" "I read the case study, published in the Journal of Sustainable Architecture. The way you worked with textured glass to preserve the original aesthetics while generating clean energy was ingenious. I imagine the technical challenges regarding historical preservation regulations must have been considerable." Ulrich let out a genuine laugh, clearly delighted. "Considerable is a diplomatic understatement. It took 18 months of negotiations with the Historical Preservation Department." He glanced at Ronan, with renewed approval. "Your wife understands the field, that is rare." "Marienne is an architect," Ronan said, and there was something in his voice, surprise perhaps at hearing the words aloud, as if he were discovering that fact for the first time. "An architect specializing in sustainable design," Marienne corrected gently. "I work primarily with consulting for LEED certifications and energy-efficient retrofits in existing buildings." "Fascinating," Ulrich said, already fully absorbed in the conversation. "Then you must have an opinion on the False Creek project. What do you think of Ronan's proposal for the mixed-use district?" Before Marienne could answer, two more investors joined the group. A tall, slender Dutchman and a Danish executive with blonde hair pulled into a severe bun. "Apologies for the interruption," the Dane said in flawless English. "I heard you mentioning False Creek. That's exactly the kind of development we want to understand better." For the next hour, Marienne found herself at the center of a captivating technical discussion. She spoke about geothermal heating systems, green roofs, and their ability to reduce urban heat islands, the importance of natural ventilation in humid climates like Vancouver. When the Dutch investors mentioned concerns about the initial costs of sustainable construction, she presented long-term return on investment data. When Ulrich questioned viability in Canadian weather, she explained specific adaptations for extreme temperatures. And most impressively, she did all of this while switching fluently between English, basic German with Ulrich, and even a few phrases in Dutch she had learned during a project years ago. Ronan stood beside her through the entire conversation, but for the first time in 2 years, he was not the center of attention. She was, and every intelligent word that slipped from Marianne's mouth, every approving smile from the investors, every nod of respect she received, each one made something unfamiliar stir in his chest, something uncomfortable, something he couldn't name. "Your wife is extraordinary," the Danish executive murmured to Ronan, while Marienne explained the challenges of building in seismic zones to Ulrich. "Intelligent, articulate, impressive technical knowledge. You are very fortunate." Ronan followed the woman's gaze to Marienne. She gestured animatedly, her dark brown eyes shining in a way he had never noticed before, or had never truly looked. The teal-blue dress enhanced her sun-kissed skin. The bun exposed the elegant line of her neck. She laughed at something Ulrich said, and the sound was musical, genuine. "Yes, Ronan murmured, but the word came out strange. I am fortunate. But the truth was more complicated. He didn't feel fortunate. He felt confused. How had he lived 2 years with this woman and never known she was like this? Intelligent, charismatic, fascinating? It was nearly 9 o'clock when Marienne stepped away from the main group to get some water at the bar. Her feet were beginning to protest inside the heels, and she needed a moment to breathe. The night felt surreal, like waking from a 2-year sleep and discovering she still knew how to dance. "Excuse me," a male voice startled her. Marienne turned and found a dark-haired man of about 36, tall, with slightly tousled waves and warm light brown eyes that shone with recognition. He wore a navy blue tuxedo instead of the traditional black, a touch of individuality that said much about his personality. "Yes?" Marienne smiled politely, trying to place the familiar face. "Marienne? Marienne Shorehart?" His smile widened. "I'm Lucien Merrow. We worked together on the Sustainable Library project in Surrey. About 4 years ago, you were the architect responsible for the rainwater harvesting system and integrated solar panels." The memory returned instantly. Lucien Merrow, the IU, brilliant structural engineer who always asked sharp questions during project meetings. They had spent weeks collaborating on technical specifications, solving integration problems between systems. "Lucien, of course I remember you. How have you been?" "Very well." His smile broadened. "I have my own engineering firm now focused on green infrastructure projects. We work mostly along the West Coast, Seattle, Portland, Vancouver, Victoria. And you? Still in the sustainable architecture field?" "I work as an independent consultant, mostly environmental certifications and bioclimatic design for residential and commercial projects." "What a partial waste." Lucien shook his head with genuine sincerity. "You were one of the most talented professionals I've ever met. With your technical knowledge and creative vision, you could be leading the sustainability department of any major architecture firm in the world." Before Marienne could respond, she felt a familiar presence. Approach. Ronan appeared beside her, posture rigid, jaw clenched in a way almost imperceptible. "Marienne!" His voice was controlled, but there was an underlying tension she had never heard before. "Ronan," she turned to him. "This is Lucien Merrow, a colleague from an old project. Lucien, my husband, Ronan Ravencourt." "A pleasure," Lucien said, extending his hand with professional courtesy. "Ravencourt Development, right? I know the company's work. You built that commercial complex in Cole Harbor. Remarkable design." "Thank you," Ronan replied, gripping the man's hand with more force than necessary. "And you work with structural engineering for green projects." "Actually," Lucien turned his attention back to Marienne, his eyes glowing with enthusiasm. "I'm expanding the firm and assembling a multidisciplinary team. I'm looking for exactly someone with your profile, Marienne. An architect specialized in sustainability, experienced with certifications, with an integrated design perspective." He pulled a business card from the inside pocket of his jacket. "How about lunch this week in Vancouver? I have a proposal that might interest you. Large-scale projects, creative autonomy, a talented team." The silence that followed lasted only 3 seconds, but it felt like an eternity. Marienne could feel the tension radiating off Ronan like heat. She began. "We're going back to Vancouver early tomorrow morning," Ronan cut in, his voice sharper than he intended. "A full schedule all week." Lucien looked from Marienne to Ronan, reading the tension in the air with the insight of someone accustomed to deciphering complex dynamics. "Of course, I completely understand." He extended the card toward Marienne. "But the invitation stands. When you have the time, I would love to talk. You have a great deal to contribute, Marienne." Marienne accepted the card, feeling Ronan's gaze burning against her skin. "Thank you, Lucien. It was really good to see you." After Lucien walked away with a friendly nod, Marienne turned to Ronan. He was motionless, jaw locked, eyes fixed on some distant point in the ballroom. "Are you ready to go?" The question came out tense, controlled to the point of stiffness. "The event isn't over. I'm ready to leave." It wasn't a request. Marienne studied his face, the hard line of his mouth, the way he avoided looking at her directly, the rigid set of his shoulders. Something was happening. Inside Ronan Ravencourt, something he clearly didn't know how to process. "All right," she said quietly. "We can go." The ride back to the Fairmont Empress took only 8 minutes, but it felt endlessly longer. They sat in silence in the back seat of the Mercedes, separated by a small physical distance, but an enormous emotional one. When they arrived at the suite, Ronan went straight to the built-in bar in the living room and poured 2 fingers of Scotch whiskey into a crystal glass. He drank half in a single swallow, something Marienne had never seen him do. "You drank quite a bit tonight," she remarked, closing the door behind her. "1 glass is quite a bit?" His response came sharp. "For you, yes. You never drink." Ronan turned toward her, and for the first time the mask of perfect control had completely fractured. His gray-green eyes were dark, storm-like. "You impressed the investors. That's why you brought me." "Yes." He finished the whiskey. It was. Marienne removed her shoes, feeling immediate relief in her aching feet. She walked to the window, gazing at the inner harbor lights reflected in the dark water. "May I ask you a question?" "You may." "Why are you angry?" "I'm not angry." Marienne turned to face him. "You are. Since the moment Lucien showed up." "I don't know what you're talking about." Ronan set the empty glass on the bar with more force than necessary. "Ronan." Marienne took a step toward him. "For 2 years, you completely ignored me, treated me as if I didn't exist. And today, for the first time, people saw me, truly saw me, and you are furious. Why?" "I'm not furious." "Then what are you?" Silence stretched. Ronan ran a hand through his hair, mussing the perfectly styled strands for the first time that night. "You speak German." The statement came out accusatory, as if Marienne had committed a crime. "I speak a little, enough for technical conversations. And Dutch, a few basic phrases." "And you impressed Ulrich Vandelstrom, a man who has negotiated with heads of state and multinational CEOs. He was being polite. He was captivated." Ronan took a step toward her. "They all were. And that man, Lucien, that man was looking at you as if you were—" "As if I were what, Ronan?" "As if you were the most intriguing woman he has ever met." The words came out layered with a raw emotion Marienne had not expected. She went still, processing what she was seeing. Ronan Ravencourt, the unshakable CEO, the man who negotiated under brutal pressure without flinching, was standing there completely undone. "And does that bother you?" she asked softly. "Yes." The admission came out rough. "Yes, it bothers me." "Why?" Ronan closed the distance between them in 2 long strides. He stopped just 1 step away from her, close enough for Marienne to feel the warmth radiating from his body, close enough to breathe in the subtle woody scent of his expensive cologne. "Because you are my wife. On paper, you said that yourself 2 years ago. It doesn't matter, you are mine. I'm not." Marienne lifted her chin, meeting his gaze with a courage she didn't know she possessed. "You never truly wanted me, Ronan. You never saw me, never cared to know who I was. I was a transaction, a signature on a contract." "You're right." His voice dropped, low and dangerous. "I never looked before, but I'm looking now. And what do you see?" Ronan lifted his hand slowly, almost hesitantly, and touched her face for the first time in 2 years. His fingers were warm against her skin, firm but surprisingly gentle. "I see the most intelligent woman I have ever met, the most interesting person in a ballroom full of fascinating people. I see someone I should have known from the very first day." Marianne's heart raced. She should step back. She should keep the distance. But something held her there, trapped in those gray-green eyes. "And does that scare you?" "Yes," Ronan admitted. "It terrifies me. Because I spent 2 years building walls between us, and today they fell apart in 3 hours. Why did you build those walls?" "Because it was easier. Because our marriage was arranged, and I thought that if we stayed detached, it would be simpler for both of us." "Simpler?" Marienne let out a humorless laugh. "You think it was simple for me, Ronan? To live like a ghost in my own home?" "No." His thumb brushed her cheekbone, and the soft stroke made every nerve in her body come alive. "It wasn't simple, and it wasn't fair. I was a selfish fool who wasted 2 years. Why are you telling me this now? Because today I saw you, truly saw you, and I realized what I've been throwing away." Marienne felt something shift in the air between them, the tension turning into something else, something warmer, something far more dangerous. And when Lucian looked at you, Ronan continued, his voice dropping. Further, when he offered you exactly the kind of professional recognition you deserve, I wanted to drag him out of the ballroom. Jealousy? Jealousy, he confirmed, as if the word tasted foreign on his tongue. Something I have never felt in my life, and it was because of you. They stood there, so close Marienne could count each dark lash framing his eyes, could see the small golden flecks scattered through the gray-green. What do we do now? She whispered. I don't know. Ronan slid his hand into her hair, releasing the bun, letting the dark waves fall softly over her shoulders. I only know I don't want this distance between us anymore. Ronan, tell me you feel it too. This pull, this electricity. Marienne knew she should deny it. She should rebuild the barriers. But when his eyes dropped to her mouth, when he leaned slightly toward her, she didn't move away. I feel it, she admitted in a whisper. Ronan closed his eyes for a second, as if those words were both a relief and a sentence. May I kiss you? The question startled her. After 2 years of marriage, he was asking for permission. Why? She asked. Why now? Because I want it to be real this time. I want you to want it too. Marienne studied his face, the vulnerability in his eyes, the patient way he waited for her answer, the respect woven into the simple question. Yes, she whispered. The kiss was devastating in its gentleness. Ronan drew her close with care, as if she were something precious he feared breaking. His lips were warm, steady, moving against hers with a restrained hunger that made the world fall away. Marienne melted into the kiss, her hands sliding up to his chest, feeling the unsteady beat of his heart beneath the fine fabric of his tuxedo. When she parted her lips slightly, Ronan deepened the kiss, and everything became heat and longing, and 2 years of loneliness finally shattering. When they broke apart, both were breathless. This changes everything, Marienne said, her hand still resting on his chest. I know, Ronan pressed his forehead to hers, and I want it to change. And in that moment, in a hotel suite in Victoria, something fundamental shifted between Marienne Shorehart and Ronan Ravencourt. For the first time, they were no longer strangers bound by marriage. They were two people seeing each other for the very first time, and neither of them had any idea how to go back. Marienne woke to the silvery glow of dawn filtering through the velvet curtains. For a moment, she forgot where she was. Then the memories returned in steady waves. The event, Lucian, the kiss. She turned her head and found the space beside her empty. Of course, after the kiss, Ronan had stepped back slowly, murmured a rough good night, and disappeared into his room. She had remained alone in the suite's living room for long minutes, her fingertips brushing her lips as she tried to understand what had just happened. Now, lying in the king-size bed with Egyptian cotton sheets, Marienne wondered if he regretted it. If, by morning, they would slip back into the safe distance of the last 2 years. The digital clock on the nightstand read 7:23. She rose, took a quick shower, dressed in dark jeans and a soft gray cashmere sweater. She left her hair down, wore no makeup. There was no reason for armor today. When she opened the bedroom door, she found Ronan in the living room. But it wasn't the composed executive Ronan she knew. He stood by the window wearing dark jeans and a simple white t-shirt, clothes Marienne had never seen on him. His hair was damp from the shower, tousled in a nearly boyish way, and on the low coffee table beside the sofa sat a full breakfast tray. "Good morning," he said when he saw her. His voice was softer than usual. "Good morning." Marienne stepped into the room, noticing the details. Fresh croissants, cut fruit, aromatic coffee, freshly squeezed orange juice and strawberry jam in a small crystal pot. "I asked them to bring it up while you were still asleep," Ronan explained. "I thought we could have breakfast together before we head back." There was something different about him, a cautious openness, as if he too wasn't sure of the rules of this new territory. "It looks wonderful." They sat on the sofa, not exactly side by side, but close enough for Marienne to feel his warmth. Ronan poured coffee for both of them. She noticed he remembered exactly how she liked it. No sugar, just a touch of milk. For a few minutes they ate in silence. But it wasn't the uncomfortable silence of before. It was something else. Anticipation. "About last night," Ronan began, setting his cup back onto its saucer. "You don't need to say anything. I do. He turned to look at her. I kissed you. I let you. And I don't regret it. The words hung in the air between them. Marienne tightened her hold on her cup. I don't either. Ronan exhaled slowly, as if he had been holding his breath without realizing it. I don't know how to do this, he admitted. I don't know how to have a real wife. I don't know how to let someone in. Why not? Ronan stayed silent for a long moment, staring at his own hands. My parents are Alistair and Verena Ravencourt. You met them at the wedding. Cold, formal, immaculate in appearance. They didn't marry for love. They married because their families thought it was an appropriate union. He had money and ambition. She had name and social connections. Marienne said nothing, simply listened. I grew up in a huge house in Shaughnessy. Everything flawless, everything perfectly arranged, and completely empty. My father traveled 300 days a year building the real estate empire. My mother dedicated herself to charity events and social galas. I was the responsibility of the nannies. Hester, Marienne said quietly, remembering the name Ronan, had mentioned once years ago in one of their rare conversations. Hester Quinley. A small, sad smile touched his face. She was more of a mother to me than Verena ever tried to be. She taught me how to tie my shoes, read bedtime stories, showed up at school events when my parents were too busy, which was always. He picked up a croissant but didn't eat it, only tore it into small pieces. When I was 12, Hester had to go back to England to care for her sick mother. I begged my parents to let her stay. I offered to pay for her mother's medical care with my allowance account. My father laughed, said I was being dramatic. Ronan, she left, and I learned an important lesson. Love is weakness. Attachment hurts. It's better to keep a distance. He finally looked at Marienne. So when our parents arranged this marriage, I thought it was perfect. A clean agreement. No complicated emotions. No risk of feeling something and losing again. Marienne set her cup aside and turned fully toward him. But you were wrong. I was wrong, he agreed. Because keeping my distance from you didn't protect me from anything. It only made me waste 2 years with the most interesting person I've ever met. I'm not that interesting. You speak 3 languages. You're an architect specializing in sustainability. You impressed German investors who have negotiated with entire governments. And last night, when you were talking about thermal insulation with Ulrich, your eyes were shining in a way I had never seen. You are absolutely fascinating, Marienne. She felt warmth rise along her neck but didn't look away. And you? Who is Ronan Ravencourt when he isn't running real estate empires? He let out a humorless laugh. I don't know. I've spent so long being the perfect son, the relentless CEO, the heir who never disappoints. I think I forgot who I was before all of that. Then tell me something true, something no one else knows. Ronan thought, for a moment. I hate wearing suits. Every morning when I fasten the buttons of the dress shirt and adjust the tie, I feel like I'm putting on a costume, dressing up to play a part. And what would you wear if you could choose? That, he pointed at his own t-shirt and jeans. Comfortable clothes, nothing that requires thought or carries any social meaning. Marienne smiled, a genuine smile. My confession? I hate most of the clothes in my closet. Verena picked everything. Neutral. Colors, conservative cuts, nothing that draws attention. The blue dress I wore yesterday was the first thing I bought for myself in 2 years. You looked beautiful in it. The words came out natural, honest. And for the first time, Marienne believed them. Thank you. They stood there looking at each other and something passed between them. Recognition, perhaps. 2 people equally lost, equally lonely. When you were a child, Ronan asked, what did you dream of becoming? Astronaut, Marienne answered without hesitation. I wanted to go to space, see Earth from afar, understand our insignificance and greatness at the same time. Why did you not pursue it? Fear of heights. She laughed. I discovered it at 15, the first time I flew on a plane. I spent the entire flight gripping the armrests, praying to land. I realized being an astronaut was out of the question. So you chose architecture. I chose to build things that would remain after me. Buildings that would last for generations. Spaces that would make people feel safe, comfortable, at home. If I could not explore space, at least I would create meaningful places on Earth. That is beautiful. It is practical. Marienne picked a strawberry from the tray. And you? What did you dream of being before knowing you would become CEO of your father's company? Chef. The answer surprised her so much she laughed, a musical sound that made his eyes brighten. Chef? Truly? Truly. Hester used to teach me to cook when I was a kid. She would say that a man who knew how to prepare his own food would never be completely dependent. I loved it. The exact measurements, the chemistry of ingredients, transforming simple elements into something new and delicious. Why did you stop? My father found out. He said cooking was servant's work, that a Ravencourt does not dirty his hands in the kitchen. Ronan picked up his coffee cup again. So I stopped. One more thing I learned to repress. That is sad. It is realistic. We do not live in fairy tales, Marienne. We live in family dynasties and social obligations. We lived, she corrected softly, but perhaps we can choose something different. Like what? Like honesty. Like truly getting to know each other, like building something real instead of performing a fake marriage. Ronan set the cup aside and turned fully toward her. They were so close now, Marienne could see the small gold flecks in his gray-green eyes, the thin line of an almost invisible scar on his left eyebrow. What if I do not know how to do that? Then we learn together. And what if I disappoint you? Ronan, you have already disappointed me. For 2 years. Anything now is an improvement. The brutal frankness of her words should have hurt, but instead Ronan laughed. A real, genuine laugh that transformed his entire face. Touché. And I will probably disappoint you too, Marienne continued. Because I can be difficult when I want to be, stubborn when I believe in something, and I hold grudges for far too long. Good to know. But I am also loyal. When I decide to commit to something or someone truly, I go all the way, and I try to see the best in people even when they hurt me. Ronan lifted his hand slowly, hesitant, and touched her face as he had the night before. But this time it was different. It was not just desire, it was connection. I want to try, he said. I want to know you. I want to discover everything, what makes you laugh, what irritates you, what your favorite food is, what kind of music you listen to when you are alone. Jazz, Marienne replied, leaning slightly into his touch. Miles Davis mostly. And you? Classic rock, Led Zeppelin, Pink Floyd, music my parents hated. They smiled at each other, and Marienne realized something extraordinary. For the first time in 2 years, she saw Ronan, not the CEO, not the husband on paper. Ronan, the man who wore armor to hide old scars, who dreamed of being a chef, who feared intimacy because intimacy always ended in loss. We have a flight in 2 hours, Ronan said, though he did not pull away. I know. We should get ready, pack our bags. We should. But neither of them moved. They stayed there, faces just inches apart, breaths synchronized, his fingers still touching her cheek. Marienne, he whispered. Yes? When we return to Vancouver, I do not want to go back to what we were before. I do not either. I want to have dinner with you. I want to have breakfast together for real, not just share the same kitchen at different times. I want to talk, to know you, to build something real. Are you asking me for a new beginning? I am asking for a chance. Marienne studied his face, the sincerity in his eyes, the hopeful tension in his jaw, the way he touched her with such reverence, as if she were something precious and fragile. A chance, she agreed, but with conditions. What conditions? Total honesty, no pretending. If something bothers you, you say it. If I do something that makes you uncomfortable, you tell me. No passive-aggressive silences, no distance used as punishment. I agree. And you stop treating me like decoration. I am an architect, I am a professional. If Lucian offers me a job and I want to accept it, you have no right to interfere. His jaw tightened slightly, but he nodded. I agree, but may I tell you honestly that the idea of you working with that man makes me uncomfortable? You may. And I may tell you honestly that I will do what is best for my career, regardless of your discomfort. Fair. They looked at each other, and then, at the same time, they smiled. Not polite or forced smiles, but genuine ones. Co-conspirators. We have an agreement then, Ronan said. We have an agreement. He leaned in and kissed her forehead. A simple gesture, yet one that carried more intimacy than the passionate kiss from the night before. Marienne closed her eyes. allowing herself to feel the moment. His scent, sandalwood soap with a hint of citrus, the warmth of his skin against hers, the way his breath hitched briefly when she placed her hand on his arm. When they parted, something had changed between them, irreversibly. "We really should get dressed now," Marienne said, though she was smiling. "We should." They stood up, but before Marienne could step away, Ronan took her hand. He intertwined his fingers with hers, a simple gesture that 2 years of marriage had never included. "Thank you," he said. "For what?" "For giving me a chance. For not giving up on me after the way I treated you." "Thank you," she replied, "for finally seeing me." And when they returned to their respective rooms to prepare for the trip back, both carried something new: hope. Perhaps, just perhaps, this marriage could become something real. Perhaps two strangers could learn to be more. Perhaps there was still time to build something true from the ruins of a cold business arrangement. The flight back to Vancouver was different. They still worked, Ronan on his laptop, Marienne reading reports, but now there were occasional touches, his fingers brushing hers when he reached for a pen, her foot grazing his beneath the small table. Glances exchanged that lasted a second longer than necessary. When they landed in Vancouver, the Mercedes was waiting. During the drive back to West Vancouver, Ronan took Marienne's hand and intertwined their fingers. She did not pull away. The glass mansion welcomed them with its usual coldness, but now it felt different. Less mausoleum, more blank canvas waiting to be filled with life. "Dinner at 7?" Ronan asked as they walked in. "At 7, Marienne confirmed. And for the first time in 24 months, they would have dinner together by their own choice. Not because a contract required it, but because they wanted to. 3 weeks after Victoria, Marienne woke to the smell of fresh coffee and something baking in the oven. She smiled before she even opened her eyes. The new routine still surprised her. Ronan waking up early to make breakfast, the two of them eating together in the kitchen while the sun rose over English Bay. Conversations that stretched until they both had to rush off to their daily commitments. She went downstairs wearing a silk robe and found Ronan, standing at the stove in jeans and a gray t-shirt. He was making pancakes, a recent discovery that had filled him with almost childlike pride. "Good morning," she said, walking up to him. Ronan turned and smiled, that new smile that transformed his whole face. "Good morning." He leaned down and kissed her forehead, a gesture that had become routine. "Blueberry pancakes, your favorite. You are spoiling me. I am making up for 2 lost years. I have a lot to catch up on." Marienne leaned against the counter beside him, watching as he flipped a pancake with exaggerated concentration. It was strange and wonderful at once. Ronan Ravencourt, the relentless CEO, intensely focused on not burning breakfast. "Important meeting today?" she asked. Presentation of the False Creek project to the board. Ulrich confirmed full investment, 15 million euros. You impressed him so much in Victoria that he barely needed additional convincing. It was the project that impressed him, not me. "It was you." Ronan placed the pancakes onto a plate. "You have a way of explaining technical concepts that makes people understand not just the viability but the importance. That is a rare talent." They sat at the kitchen table, not the formal dining room decorated by Verena with impeccable icy taste, but the simple table by the window where the morning sunlight spilled in, warm and golden. "And you?" Ronan asked, pouring authentic Canadian maple syrup over her pancakes. "New projects?" "Lucian sent me 3 more proposals yesterday, big ones. A residential complex in Burnaby, a sustainable renovation of a historic building in Gastown, and a community center in Surrey." She watched his reaction carefully. In the past weeks, Ronan had worked hard to manage his instinctive reaction to the name Lucian Marrow. It was not easy. Marienne could see his jaw tighten slightly every time she mentioned the colleague, but he tried. "Are they good projects?" His voice came out controlled, neutral. "Excellent. Lucian is building something special. His firm focuses exclusively on green architecture, and he is attracting the best professionals on the West Coast. And you want to be part of that." It was not a question. It was a statement. "Yes," Marienne answered honestly. "I do. I spent 2 years working alone on small projects. It is fulfilling, but also lonely. The chance to collaborate with a team again, to work on a larger scale." "Then accept." Marienne looked up, surprised. "Seriously?" Seriously. Ronan cut into his own pancake with a bit too much force, but his voice stayed steady. You are far too talented to waste that talent. And we promised honesty, remember? So I will be honest. I do not like the idea of you working with a man who clearly admires you beyond the professional. It makes me uncomfortable, but it is not my decision. It is yours. Marienne reached across the table and touched his fingers. Thank you. For what? For trying. I know it is not easy. Ronan intertwined his fingers with hers. Nothing about us is easy, but it is worth it. During the week, their life found a new rhythm. Ronan still worked long hours at Ravencourt Development, but now he came home at 6 instead of 8. They ate dinner together, sometimes meals he prepared with intense concentration, sometimes takeout from restaurants they were discovering together. They talked about everything. Work projects, world news, films they wanted to watch, their childhoods, abandoned dreams, and new hopes. The following Thursday, Ronan arrived home at 3, a time unheard of in 2 years of marriage. Put on something comfortable, he said when Marienne came downstairs from her office, surprised to see him. We are going out. Out where? Surprise. 30 minutes later, they were walking through Stanley Park. It was a rare day of full sun in Vancouver. Cloudless blue sky, mild. Temperature, a soft breeze blowing from the ocean. The park was full of cyclists, joggers, families with children, dogs running freely in the permitted areas. I did not know you liked parks, Marienne said as they walked along the seawall trail. I have not been here since I was a kid. Hester used to bring me on her days off. We would say we were going to the museum so my mother would approve, but we actually spent hours here. She would buy fish and chips and we would eat sitting on those benches over there. He pointed to an area overlooking the strait. Those were some of the happiest days of my childhood. Marienne intertwined her fingers with his as they walked. Have you ever tried to find her? Hester? I tried when I turned 18. Found out she had passed away 2 years earlier. Ronan fell silent for a moment. I never had the chance to thank her, to tell her how much she meant to me. I am sure she knew. I hope so. They stopped at a viewpoint, where the Pacific Ocean stretched infinite and blue toward the horizon. Ronan turned to Marienne, placing his hands on her waist. Thank you for making me want to live again, he said, for showing me that there is more to life than work and obligations. You did the same for me. He leaned in and kissed her. Soft, slow, unhurried. When they pulled apart, both were smiling. The following Saturday, they woke late and spent the entire morning in bed, not making love yet, but talking, laughing, sharing stories. Marienne discovered that Ronan had a dry, intelligent sense of humor when he allowed himself to relax. He discovered that she could imitate accents in hilarious ways. In the afternoon, they cooked together, Ronan teaching Marienne how to make Hester's tomato sauce while Miles Davis played in the background. They danced in the kitchen, slowly, bodies close, the outside world forgotten. I am happy, Marienne said, her head resting against his chest as they swayed. So am I. It scares me a little, how happy I am. Why? Because now there is something to lose. Ronan pulled her closer. You will not lose it. I promise. That night after dinner, they were on the couch watching a movie when Ronan turned off the TV and faced her. Marienne. There was something different in his voice, something deeper. Yes? May I touch you? Truly? She understood immediately what he was asking. After weeks of kisses and casual touches, he was asking permission for more. Yes, she whispered. What happened next was slow and reverent. Ronan guided her to the bedroom, every movement deliberate, giving her time to change her mind. But Marienne did not. When he laid her on the bed, when his fingers found the belt of her robe, when he kissed her neck with a tenderness that made her tremble, she knew she wanted this. She wanted him. Their first time together had been everything Marienne never knew she needed. Gentle yet passionate, careful yet intense. Ronan took his time with her, learning every reaction, every breath, every touch that made her arch beneath him. Afterward, lying tangled together, he kissed her forehead. It was worth waiting 2 years, he murmured. Absolutely. In the weeks that followed, their life blossomed. The mansion stopped feeling like a mausoleum and transformed into a home. Laughter echoed through the halls. Music played in the mornings. Maribel commented, her eyes shining with happiness that the house finally felt alive. Marienne accepted the position at Lucien's firm. 3 days a week, selective projects, complete creative autonomy. Ronan did not hide his discomfort, but he respected her decision. And when she came home excited, speaking about the progress on her projects, he listened with genuine interest. Ronan, in turn, began reducing his workload. He delegated more responsibilities, learned to say no to unnecessary meetings, and prioritized time at home. With Marienne, it was on a Tuesday, almost 2 months after Victoria, that everything fell apart. Marienne was in Ronan's office looking for a stapler. He had asked for her help organizing some documents for an important meeting. His desk was as immaculate as always, except for a side drawer that was slightly open. When she tried to close it, the drawer jammed. Marienne pulled to unstick it, and a leather folder slipped out, spilling papers across the floor. Sighing, she bent down to gather the documents. Then she saw it. Business Acquisition and Matrimonial Union Agreement, Ravencourt Holdings and Shoreheart Architecture, Confidential Addendum. Marienne's blood froze. She knew the original contract. She had always known the marriage had been arranged to save her father's company. That had never been a secret. But this was different. An addendum dated 6 months before the wedding, stamped, strictly confidential, restricted access. With I.B. Way, trembling hands, she began to read. Clause 7.3. Mandatory consummation of the marriage. To ensure full legal validity of the matrimonial agreement and prevent the possibility of future annulment due to non-consummation, the marriage must be physically consummated before the completion of the minimum 3-year period stipulated in Clause 2.1. It is strongly recommended that consummation occur between the 24th and 30th month to demonstrate natural evolution of the conjugal relationship and avoid the appearance of forced contractual fulfillment that could invalidate the agreement in the event of judicial contestation. Marienne reread the clause 3 times. Each word pierced deeper. 26 months. They had made love for the first time exactly in the 26th month of their marriage. There was more. Much more. Clause 7.4. Recommended strategy for conjugal approach. To facilitate compliance with Clause 7.3 without significant resistance from the female party, the following phased strategy is recommended. Phase 1, months 1 to 20. Complete emotional distancing to establish a pattern of cold and formal interaction. Phase 2, months 21 to 24. Gradual approach initiated through a strategic social event in which the female party can demonstrate public professional value, creating a catalyst for change in relational dynamics. Phase 3, months 24-30. Intensification of emotional and physical intimacy, simulating natural development of authentic conjugal feelings. Marienne's hands trembled so violently she nearly dropped the papers again. Simulating natural development of authentic conjugal feelings. Simulating. She turned the page and found printed emails. The first was from Alistair Ravencourt to Ronan, dated 3 weeks before their trip to Victoria. Ronan, the 3-year contractual period ends in 4 months. July. Time to execute Clause 7.3 as planned. Take M to the event in Victoria as discussed. Show public interest for the first time. Use the presence of other interested men as a jealousy tool if necessary. It works efficiently to accelerate the approach. Remember, consummation must appear absolutely natural and spontaneous, never obligatory. Once completed, the agreement will be legally shielded from any future attempt at annulment. Her father's company is already fully integrated into our holding. We cannot risk losing that asset due to a legal technicality. Proceed as instructed. Father. Ronan's response was just below, same date. Father, understood. Victoria will be the starting point. I will execute as planned. R. Marienne's stomach twisted violently. She ran to the office bathroom and vomited. Victoria. The event that changed everything. Ronan asking her to accompany him for the first time. His jealousy when Lucian appeared. The sudden closeness. The long conversations. The romantic dinners. The declarations of affection at the hotel breakfast table. All calculated, all timed. All part of a corporate plan to legally validate a business contract. She staggered back to the office and kept reading. There were more emails. Ronan to Alistair, 1 week after Victoria. Father, Phase 2 executed successfully. M responded positively to the change in approach as expected. Jealousy worked as an efficient catalyst, advancing to Phase 3. Estimated consummation, 3 to 4 weeks. R. Alistair to Ronan, 2 days before. Their first night together. Excellent progress. Remember to subtly document the chronology for future legal defense if necessary. After consummation is confirmed, you may relax the intensity of the relationship if you prefer. The important thing is ensuring that the contract cannot be contested. Father. Marienne sank heavily into Ronan's leather chair. The room spun. The air vanished. Their first time making love, the night she cherished as sacred memory when Ronan had asked for permission with such reverence when he had whispered, it was worth the wait afterward, had been an item checked off a corporate list. All the romance of the past 2 months, every kiss, every intimate conversation, every I love you whispered into her skin. A corporate strategy executed according to plan. She had been seduced methodically, scientifically, following detailed instructions from her father-in-law to legally validate a business agreement. Marienne heard the familiar sound of the Tesla pulling into the garage. Ronan arriving early, just as he had promised. They had plans to cook dinner together and watch the new movie she had mentioned wanting to see. Another night of Phase 3. Intensification of emotional intimacy, simulating the natural development of authentic marital feelings. She placed all the documents back into the folder with hands that would not stop trembling. When Ronan stepped into the house, whistling a tune, carrying bags of groceries to prepare something special, he found her in the living room. Marienne, I got those wild mushrooms you love. I thought I would make a risotto and… He stopped abruptly when he saw her expression. What happened? Marienne threw the folder onto the coffee table. The documents scattered like pieces of evidence from a crime scene. Clause 7.3, she said, her voice emerging strangely calm. Mandatory consummation between the 24th and 30th month of marriage. The color drained from Ronan's face instantly. The grocery bag slipped from his hands, hitting the floor with a dull thud. Marienne, I can explain. Can you? She stood, picking up one of the emails. Then explain this. Victoria will be the starting point. I will proceed as planned. Signed by you 3 weeks before you took me to that event. Let me tell you the full story. The full story? Marienne let out a humorless laugh. I believe I just read the full story. Phase 1. Emotional distancing for 20 months. Phase 2. Strategic event in Victoria using jealousy as a catalyst. Phase 3. Simulation of authentic marital feelings. It is all here, Ronan. Step by step, like an instruction manual for seducing the foolish wife. It was not like that. Yes, there was a plan initially, but… Initially? Marienne picked up another email. This one is from 2 days before our first night together. Your father instructing you to subtly document the chronology for future legal defense. Our first time making love and you were thinking about legal documentation. Listen to what I am trying to say. Ronan took a step toward her. Yes, there was a plan in the beginning. Yes, Victoria was my father's suggestion to fulfill a contractual clause. But what happened after? What I felt for you, that was real. Real. Marienne felt something break inside her. How am I supposed to believe it was real when every step followed the exact, planned timeline? When we made love for the first time in the 26th month precisely within the recommended window of Clause 7.3? It was a coincidence in timing. It was not a coincidence. It is all documented. Phase 2 successfully executed. Estimated consummation 3 to 4 weeks. And 3 weeks later, exactly as you predicted to your father, it happened. Ronan ran his hands over his face, his composure finally collapsing. Fine, fine. Yes, in the beginning, I was following the plan. Victoria was strategy. The initial approach was calculated, but at some point between that event and today, everything changed. I changed. What I feel for you stopped being performance and became real. When? Marienne challenged. When exactly did it stop being performance? After the consummation, when the clause had been fulfilled and the contract secured? Or perhaps it is still performance now, only you have become so good at it that you cannot tell the difference anymore? You know you love me. You feel the connection between us. I thought I knew, but how can I trust my own feelings when I was scientifically manipulated? when every step of your approach followed detailed instructions to facilitate consummation without significant resistance. You seduced me following a corporate script, Ronan. The feelings were not in the script. Falling in love with you was not part of the plan. Prove it. The word left her like a challenge. Prove you truly love me and are not just performing so well that you convinced even yourself. Ronan fell silent, because there was no proof, no way to prove it. I knew about the arranged marriage from the start. Marienne continued, her voice breaking for the first time. I always knew I married you to save my father's company. I accepted that. I accepted being a wife on paper. What I did not know, what you hid, was that even our intimacy was contractual, that making love to me was an item on a corporate task list, that every kiss, every I love you, every moment I treasured was part of a business strategy. It was not like that. It was exactly like that. Marienne grabbed her purse and keys. And the worst part, Ronan? The worst part is that I truly believed. I believed that someone finally saw me, that someone chose me, but you never chose me. You executed me, like a project, like a business agreement. I was seduced by a corporate timeline. Marienne, please, I need to leave. I need to think far away from you and far away from these walls where everything was a lie. Where are you going? I do not know. But I need to find out what in our story was real, and what was a performance so flawless it fooled even me. Everything was real. Every second was real. But Marienne was already at the door. She paused for only a moment, without turning around. That night, when you asked for permission for the first time, when you said, "May I touch you for real," with that reverent voice, I kept that as the most beautiful moment of my life. And now I learned that 3 days earlier you were emailing your father estimating how long it would take to convince me. That was not real, Ronan. It was the perfect execution of a corporate strategy. I love you. You love the successful conclusion of a contract. There is a difference. And then she left, leaving Ronan alone in the living room with the documents scattered at his feet, and the sound of her car speeding down the street. Marienne drove without clear direction for 20 minutes before stopping at a boutique hotel in Yaletown. She paid in cash for a simple room, climbed the stairs because she could not face other people in the elevator, and finally, alone, allowed herself to collapse, not with tears. She refused to give pain yet another piece of herself, but with a cold, deep anger that consumed her from within. The phone rang. Ronan. She declined. It. Ring again. She declined again. Messages began to arrive. Please come home. I love you. This is real. Let me explain properly. I do not give up on you. Never. Marienne blocked his number and lay down on the bed, staring at the unfamiliar ceiling of an unfamiliar room. 26 months. Mandatory consummation window between the 24th and 30th month. Phase 3. Simulation of authentic marital feelings. She had been seduced by a corporate timeline. Methodically. Manipulated. Transformed from a wife on paper into a consummated wife to secure a business agreement against legal annulment. And the part that hurt the most? She had genuinely fallen in love. While he executed a plan, she handed over her heart. Doubt was poison. And Marienne did not know if she would ever be able to trust again, him or herself. 7 days. 168 hours since Marienne had walked out the door with the documents in her hand and her heart in pieces. Ronan had stopped counting after the 5th day because the numbers were destroying him. He was sitting in the mansion's office at 3 in the morning, a half-empty bottle of whiskey beside the laptop. He was not drunk. He had discovered that alcohol did not erase guilt. It only sharpened it. He was simply existing, trying to remember how to breathe without her. His phone rang for the 10th time that night. Alistair, again, you are ruining everything over feelings. His father's voice came through cold and cutting when Ronan finally answered. The board is questioning your leadership. Ulrich has threatened to pull his investment. You need to fix this situation. I do not care about the board. You should. It is your company. No, Ronan said, his voice steadier than he felt. It is your company. It always has been. I only executed orders, like an obedient employee. So you are giving up? Over a woman who discovered the truth she should have known from the start? I am not giving up anything. I am choosing. For the first time in my life, I am choosing what truly matters instead of obeying your manual on how to build soulless empires. Childish sentiment does not build fortunes, but it builds lives worth living, something you never understood. Ronan ended the call before Alistair could respond. He blocked the number, then he blocked Verina's as well, because he knew she would call next with the same rehearsed arguments about family, responsibility, and public appearances. He no longer cared. During the first week, Ronan had called Marienne 37 times. All went straight to voicemail. He sent messages she never answered. He tried to track her through credit cards, but she had paid the hotel in cash and vanished completely. On the third day, he went to Lucien Marot's firm. "Is she working today?" Ronan asked when he managed to get past the receptionist. Lucien studied him for a long moment. The wrinkled suit, the 3-day stubble, the dark circles under his eyes that seemed like caverns. "She is not, and even if she were, I doubt she would want to see you. I know, but I need to know she is safe. She is not safe. She is destroyed, and you are the only one responsible for that." The words should have hurt more, but Ronan merely nodded. They were nothing but the unvarnished truth. "I know, and I will spend the rest of my life making up for it. But first I need to find her." "For what? To make more promises she will not believe? To execute the next phase of your father's corporate plan?" The sarcasm in Lucien's voice was deserved. Ronan swallowed the instinctive anger. "No, to prove it. With actions, not words. To show her that the love I feel now has no timeline, no clauses, no strategies." Lucien remained silent for a long moment, assessing him. "She is in a hotel in Yaletown. I will not tell you which one, but I will offer you some unsolicited advice. If you truly love her, give her the space she needs to process the betrayal. Let her decide whether she can forgive you, and when she is ready, she will come back, or she will not. But chasing her will not work this time." On the 5th day, Maribel appeared in his office with a tray of food Ronan had not asked for. "You need to eat something," she said with the gentle firmness of someone who had known him since childhood. "I am not hungry. You have not eaten in days. You are making yourself sick." "I am fine, Maribel." "No, you are not." She set the tray on the desk and crossed her arms. "And Mrs. Ravencourt is not fine either." Ronan's head snapped up instantly. "You spoke to her?" "I did. She called yesterday to say she was safe and asked me for something surprising." "What was it?" "To look after you. Even furious, even shattered by the betrayal, she still cares. So I am going to be completely direct, Mr. Ronan. Because someone has to be. You made a terrible mistake. Not only by following your father's plan, but by not telling her the truth before she discovered it on her own. But what you feel for her now is real. I saw the transformation. Everyone did. She does not believe that, and I cannot blame her. Then show her. Words will not fix what you broke. Action will." That night, Ronan did something he had never done before. He called the family attorney and instructed radical changes. "I want my name removed from all Ravencourt companies. Transfer all my shares to Alistair Ravencourt. I want out of the holding completely. Mr. Ravencourt, that represents billions of dollars in assets. Are you certain?" "Absolutely. And there is more. Shorehart Architecture, which was absorbed into the holding. I want it returned entirely to the Shorehart family, free of any Ravencourt ties. No debts, no clauses, no invisible strings. That will require board approval. I do not care about the board. Make it happen. Use any legal loophole necessary. It is my inheritance, my shares. I want out of everything that carries the Ravencourt name. May I ask why? Because I need to prove that love is worth more than empires. That I choose my wife over inherited fortunes and paternal approval." On the 7th day, Marienne woke with her stomach twisting violently. She ran to the hotel bathroom and vomited. For the 3rd morning in a row, it was not possible. But when she bought 4 different pregnancy tests at the corner pharmacy, and all of them showed 2 unmistakable pink lines, reality hit her like a tidal wave. She was pregnant. From Ronan. From the man who had seduced her by following a corporate timeline. Marienne sat on the edge of the hotel's tiny bathtub, holding the tests with trembling fingers, and for the first time in a week she allowed herself to think of him without the immediate surge of anger. She thought of the night when they had made love for the first time, 26th month. within the mandatory consummation window. But she also thought of the way he had asked for permission, the way he had trembled when he touched her, the reverence in his eyes when he looked at her afterward. Had it all been a lie? Or somewhere between corporate strategy and that night, had something real begun to grow? Someone knocked on the door. Marienne pulled on the hotel robe quickly and opened it, finding Maribel holding a brown paper bag and an envelope. "How did you find out where I am?" "Mr. Lucian told me. May I come in?" Marienne stepped aside. Maribel entered, glancing around the small, impersonal room with a motherly disapproval. "This place is not suitable for you. It is temporary. Temporary can become permanent if we are not careful." Maribel placed the bag on the bed. "I brought clean clothes and a few personal things of yours, and I came because you need to know what is happening. I do not want to know anything about Ronan. You will want to hear this." Maribel sat at the edge of the bed. "He is destroying himself. He is not eating, he is not sleeping. He fought with Alistair so fiercely that his father has threatened to disinherit him completely. And 3 days ago, he signed documents transferring all shares and properties to Alistair. All of them? Every single one. He is giving up billions of dollars, the entire company, the whole inheritance. Why? Because of you. To prove that his love for you is not about contracts or strategies or corporate timelines." Marienne sank heavily onto the bed beside the housekeeper. "But how can I trust that? How do I know this is not just the next move on his corporate chessboard?" "Because, dear, there is no corporate chessboard anymore. He stepped out of the game entirely." Maribel took Marienne's hands. "And there is more. Shoreheart architecture? He is giving it back to your family. Completely. No ties, no debts, no hidden clauses. He is doing that? The lawyers are filing the paperwork now. Your father will receive the company back free and clear." Marienne touched her stomach instinctively, where a tiny life was growing. "I am pregnant, Maribel." The housekeeper smiled, a wide smile that lit up her entire face. "I knew it. A mother always recognizes the signs. Does he know?" "No, I found out today. Will you tell him?" I do not know. I do not want him to come back out of obligation, out of another invisible contractual clause. Then test him. See if what he is doing now, giving up everything without knowing about the pregnancy, is proof enough that he is choosing you genuinely." Maribel extended the envelope she had brought. "He asked me to give you this. He said he would not force contact, but he wanted you to know the full truth. Not the truth in his father's emails, but his own truth." After Maribel left, Marienne remained sitting on the bed for 20 minutes, staring at the sealed envelope. Finally, with trembling fingers, she opened it. Inside was a handwritten letter in Ronan's handwriting, normally impeccable, but now uneven, as if written with a shaking hand. "Marienne, I will not ask for your forgiveness because I do not deserve it. I will not tell you that I love you because you no longer believe those words when they come from me. I will only tell you the truth I should have confessed back in Victoria. Yes, in the beginning I followed my father's plan. Victoria was strategy. Using jealousy as a catalyst was calculated. The approach had a timeline. Everything in the emails you read is true, but there was a specific moment when everything changed for me. It was at breakfast in the hotel in Victoria, when you told me about dreaming of becoming an astronaut and discovering a fear of heights. When you laughed in that genuine, free way. In that moment, I looked at you and thought, I could spend my entire life listening to that laugh. It was not in the script. There was no clause for that. From that day forward, with every passing moment, the plan mattered less, and you mattered more. When we danced in the kitchen while making tomato sauce. When you imitated Ulrich's German accent and I laughed until it hurt. When I woke at 3 in the morning and found you asleep with an architecture book open on your lap because you had dozed off working. I fell in love. Truly, without a timeline. The night we made love for the first time? Yes, it happened in the 26th month, but not because I was fulfilling a clause. It happened because I could no longer hold back how much I loved you. Because you were everything I thought about, everything I wanted. The mistake was not falling in love. The mistake was not telling you about the original plan when I realized it had stopped being a plan and had become real. I was afraid of losing you, so I chose to hide it. And that omission betrayed you worse than any contract. I am giving up Ravencourt Holdings, the shares, the company, the fortune, not as a strategy to win you back, but because I finally understand that building soulless empires is worth nothing. I am returning your father's company without conditions, because he deserves to have back what never should have been taken as leverage. And I am giving you the freedom that never should have been negotiated in contracts. If you decide to come back, it will be because you choose it, not because you must, not because you are bound, because you choose. And if you decide not to come back, I will respect that. I will suffer every day for the rest of my life, but I will respect it, because loving you truly means placing your choices above my own needs. Ronan. P.S. Hester, the one I told you passed away when I was 18, I lied. I don't know if she died or not. I simply lost contact when she went back to England and never had the courage to look for her. I was terrified of finding out she'd forgotten me, or worse, that she was disappointed in the cold man I'd become. Another lie by omission. I'm learning slowly that honesty hurts less than secrets. I'm going to look for her now. If she's still alive, I'll thank her for teaching me what true love is, even though it took me 34 years to understand the lesson. Marienne read the letter 3 times. Every word, every confession, every piece of raw honesty. It was not an excuse. It was not manipulation. It was simply truth. And for the first time in a week, the knot in her chest loosened slightly. That afternoon, she finally called Ronan. He answered before the first ring fully ended. Marienne. His voice came out hoarse, broken. Hi. Are you safe? Are you all right? I am. I received your letter. And I need to see you. Today. Stanley Park. On the bench where Hester used to take you. 4 p.m. I will be there. When Marienne arrived at the park at 4:05 p.m., 5 minutes late on purpose, needing the extra time to gather her courage, she found Ronan already sitting on the wooden bench, staring out at the infinite Pacific Ocean. He looked different, thinner, unshaven, wearing faded jeans and a simple gray t-shirt, nothing like his corporate suits. He looked younger and at the same time completely exhausted. Hi, she said, stopping a few steps away. Ronan stood immediately as if jolted by electricity. Hi, thank you for coming, for giving me this chance. They stood there looking at each other across the careful space between them, and Marienne saw everything in his eyes. Deep regret, real pain, desperate love. Sit, she said. They sat on the bench with deliberate space between them. For a long moment they simply listened to the waves crashing against the rocks below, the seagulls crying, the wind moving through the centuries-old trees. I read your letter, Marienne began, several times, and I need you to understand the depth of the pain you caused me. It was not only discovering the plan, it was discovering that every moment I held sacred had a corporate timeline behind it. Our first time making love, I thought it was a choice, that you wanted me so much you could not wait any longer. And then I found out it had an expiration date in a contract. I know, and I am sorry, does not even scratch the surface of what I did to you. When exactly did it stop being a plan and become real? Ronan stayed silent for a moment, organizing his thoughts. Victoria, breakfast. When you spoke about dreaming of becoming an astronaut and I realized I could listen to you forever. In that moment, the voice of my father in my head saying, execute the strategy, disappeared. And all that remained was, I want to know this woman for real. But you kept following the timeline after that. Yes, because it was the only way I knew how. To get close to someone. I never learned how to love, Marienne, never. So I used the structure I knew, the plan. But the feelings that grew inside that structure were real, terrifyingly, overwhelmingly real. Marienne looked at his hands, noticing how they were clenched into tense fists. Maribel told me you gave up everything. I did not give up everything. I gave up things that do not matter. Money, power, my father's approval. But I did not give up you. I will never give up you, even if you give up me. And if I decide not to come back. The question came out as a test. Marienne needed to know. Ronan drew in a deep breath and she saw pain cross his face. Then I will respect it. I will suffer every day, but I will respect it. Because loving you truly means placing your freedom above my need to be with you. Even knowing I will work with Lucian, That I will continue my professional life away from you? Even then, you deserve to live the life you choose, with whomever you choose. Marienne felt something inside her give way, not full forgiveness, but a beginning. I am pregnant. The world stopped. Ronan looked at her as if she had rewritten the laws of physics. Pregnant, he repeated, his voice strange. For how long? Around 6 weeks. A baby. Our baby. Yes, and you need to know, this changes nothing about what I am feeling. I will not use a child to manipulate you or trap you. If we get back together, it will be because I chose to forgive you, not because I am pregnant. Ronan covered his face with his hands. His shoulders trembled silently. Ronan, when he lowered his hands, there was no overflowing emotion, but something deeper, something visceral and true. Sorry, it is just that, a child, a real family. It is everything I ever wanted without knowing I wanted it. He looked at her with an intensity that made her breath catch. But you are right. The baby does not change the fact that I betrayed you. It does not change that I need to earn back your trust millimeter by millimeter. You really gave up billions before knowing about the pregnancy. Yes. Why? Because I needed to prove to myself, not to you, to myself, that I was capable of choosing love over obligation, that I was different from my father, that you were worth more than any inherited fortune. Marienne studied his face for a long moment, the sincerity in his eyes, the open posture, the way he waited for her response without pressure. Not everything is forgiven, she said at last. It still hurts. I still question what was real and what was performance. I know, and I will need time, a lot of time, to trust again. You have all the time you need, and therapy, both of us, together and separately, because we have a lot to untangle. I agree completely. And absolute honesty, total, even when it hurts, even when it is inconvenient. No more strategic omissions. I promise, no more lies, not even by omission. Marienne drew a steady breath. Then yes, we will try. Not because the baby is coming, not because you gave up fortunes, but because I still love you, even when I did not want to, and because I believe that the man who wrote that letter is who you truly are beneath all the corporate layers. Ronan extended his hand, hesitant. Marienne took it, their fingers intertwining. It will not be easy, she warned. Some nights I will wake up angry. Some days I will question every gesture you make. I will need more patience than you might have. I have all the patience in the world, and I will prove every day that my love has no timeline, no clauses, no strategies, only choice. Every day, I choose you, and I choose to give you this chance, not because I owe it, because I want to. They sat there, hands intertwined, watching the ocean as the sun began to lower on the horizon, painting the sky in shades of orange and rose. Marienne, yes, thank you for not giving up on us, for giving me the chance to be the man I should have been from the beginning. Thank you for finally being honest, even when the truth was ugly. When they stood to return to their cars, Ronan paused. Where to now? Home, Marienne said. We are going home, but I will sleep in the guest room for now. We need to rebuild slowly. Slow is perfect. And as they drove back to the mansion in West Vancouver, she in her car, he following behind in the Tesla, they both knew the path ahead would be long and difficult, but for the first time, they were walking it together, not because of a contract, not because of a strategy, not because of obligation, but by choice. And choice, Marienne finally understood, was the only solid foundation upon which true love could be built. The rest of the morning unfolded in the chaotic and beautiful routine of anyone with a newborn baby. Feedings, diaper changes, playtime on the activity mat that took up half the living room, failed attempts to get Anne to nap. At exactly 2 o'clock, the doorbell rang. Ronan opened the door, and Hester Quinley swept in like a gentle hurricane. Petite, white hair twisted into a bun, blue eyes shining with joy, carrying suitcases and gift bags. "My boy!" she exclaimed, wrapping Ronan in a hug with a strength that defied her 72 years. "And where is my beautiful granddaughter?" Granddaughter was an honorary title Hester used with pride. Anne technically was not biologically hers, But love did not require DNA. She is in the living room with Marienne, spending time on the mat. Hester practically ran to the living room, letting out a delighted squeal when she saw Anne. "Look how she has grown! She is already holding her head up on her own. And that smile. Ronan, she has your smile." The next hours filled with laughter, stories, English tea that Hester insisted on preparing the proper way, and the warm feeling of a real family. "So," Hester said once they finally sat down for dinner, lasagna Ronan had prepared under her watchful supervision, "I heard rumors that you two are renewing your vows." Marienne and Ronan exchanged glances. "We were waiting for the right moment to tell you," Marienne said. "Next Saturday," Ronan continued, "right here, in the garden. Nothing elaborate, only the people who truly matter. And am I invited?" Hester's eyes sparkled. "You are the guest of honor," Ronan said, "along with Anne, of course." The following Saturday, the mansion's garden was decorated simply but beautifully. Fairy lights hung from the trees, white petals scattered over the green lawn, rustic wooden chairs arranged in a semicircle. 25 people, no more, each one chosen because they truly mattered. Marienne wore a flowing white linen dress that embraced her post-pregnancy body with elegance. Hair down in natural waves, minimal makeup. Anne in her arms wearing a small lace dress Hester had bought in Brighton. Ronan wore beige linen trousers and a white shirt with rolled-up sleeves. No tie, no corporate formality. Just him, genuine and present. They met beneath an arch of wildflowers that Maribel had helped build. This time, there was no judge or official celebrant. Lucien, as best man, would officiate the simple ceremony. "Marienne and Ronan," Lucien began, his voice heavy with emotion. "You are here today not because families arranged it, not because contracts demanded it, but because you chose it. Every day you choose this love, and that choice is what makes this marriage real." Ronan took Marianne's hands. Anne nestled between them. "Marienne, 3 years ago, I married a stranger to fulfill a corporate obligation. Today, I marry my best friend, the mother of my child, the woman who taught me that vulnerability is strength. I promise to choose you every day. I promise honesty, even when it hurts. I promise to never again place strategies above feelings. You and Anne are my home, my purpose, my chosen family." Marienne adjusted Anne in her arm and took Ronan's free hand. "Ronan, you taught me that people can change, that mistakes can be forgiven, that love can grow from the unlikeliest beginnings. I promise to continue choosing you. I promise to trust even when it is difficult. I promise to build this family with honesty and courage. The three of us, you, me, Anne, are proof that true love is not about perfection. It is about conscious choice every single day." There were no new rings. They wore the same ones from their original wedding, now with new meaning. There was no cinematic kiss. Anne chose that moment to let out a sharp squeal that made everyone laugh. But when Ronan kissed Marianne's forehead, then Anne's, whispering, "My girls," with such reverence that Marianne's eyes glistened, everyone present felt the palpable truth. This was real family, real love, a real new beginning. The celebration was simple. A backyard barbecue, live music played by a string quartet Marienne knew from an old project, conversations stretching until sunset painted the sky. Alistair and Verena attended surprisingly. Ronan's relationship with his parents was still tense, but slowly healing. When Alistair held Anne for the first time, the stern, calculating man completely fell apart. "She is beautiful," he murmured, and for the first time, Marienne saw genuine humanity in her father-in-law's eyes. "She is your granddaughter," Ronan said firmly, "and if you want to be part of her life, you will need to learn that family is not about contracts. It is about love." Alistair only nodded, holding Anne with reverent care. When the guests left and Anne finally fell asleep after much resistance, Marienne and Ronan sat on the terrace, watching the stars appear over English Bay. "What are you thinking about?" Marienne asked, her head resting on his shoulder. "About how I almost destroyed all of this. If you had not given me a second chance. But I did, because I saw that the man who wrote that honest letter was who you truly were, and it was worth believing in." "Let us travel," Ronan said suddenly. "When Anne is older, Italy, Greece, Japan, let us show her the world." "Travel sounds perfect," And maybe more children. Anne needs siblings. Marienne laughed. She is 3 months old. Let us take it slow. We have time. Ronan agreed, kissing the top of her head. We have the rest of our lives. And they truly did. Not the life that had been planned in corporate contracts. Not the life of social appearances and family obligations. But the life they chose to build together. Authentic, messy, filled with true love. Shoreheart Ravencourt would continue to grow, reshaping the urban landscape with buildings that respected the planet. Anne would grow up surrounded by unconditional love, learning early that family was defined by choice, not by surnames or contracts. More children would come eventually. A boy named James, then twin girls, Lily and Rose, filling the glass mansion with laughter, scattered toys, and that beautiful chaos only children can create. Hester would move permanently to Vancouver 2 years later, buying a charming little house 10 minutes from the mansion, always present for breakfasts and babysitting emergencies. Alistair and Verena would slowly learn to be grandparents, thawing decades of emotional coldness through the love of grandchildren who hugged them without hesitation. But that night, sitting beneath endless stars with the soft sound of the ocean in the distance, Marienne and Ronan simply existed together. The rest of the morning unfolded in the chaotic, beautiful rhythm of life with a small baby, feedings, diaper changes, playtime on the activity mat that took up half the living room, and several failed attempts to coax Anne into a nap. At exactly 2 o'clock, the doorbell rang. Ronan opened it, and Hester Quinley swept in like a gentle whirlwind, petite, white hair pinned back, blue eyes sparkling with joy, carrying suitcases and bags full of gifts. "My boy!" she exclaimed, hugging Ronan with a strength that contradicted her 72 years. "And where is my beautiful granddaughter?" Granddaughter was an honorary title Hester used with pride. Anne was not biologically related to her, but love has never required DNA. She's in the living room with Marienne holding court on the activity mat. Hester practically ran to the room, letting out a delighted gasp the moment she saw Anne. "Look how she's grown. She can already hold her head up. And that smile. Ronan, she has your smile." The next hours were filled with laughter, stories, English tea that Hester insisted on preparing the proper way, and the warm, steady feeling of real family. "So," Hester said, when they finally sat down for dinner, lasagna Ronan had made under her watchful supervision, "I heard rumors that you two are renewing your vows?" Marienne and Ronan exchanged glances. "We were waiting for the right moment to tell you," Marienne said. "Next Saturday," Ronan continued, "right here in the garden. Nothing elaborate, just the people who truly matter. And am I invited?" Hester's eyes gleamed. "You're the guest of honor," Ronan said, "along with Anne, of course." The following Saturday, the mansion's garden was decorated simply but beautifully. Fairy lights hung from the trees, white petals were scattered across the green grass, and rustic wooden chairs were arranged in a semicircle. 25 guests, no more. Every one of them chosen because they genuinely mattered. Marienne wore a flowing white linen dress that embraced her post-pregnancy body with grace. Her hair was loose in soft waves, her makeup minimal. Anne in her arms wearing a little lace dress Hester had bought in Brighton. Ronan wore beige linen trousers and a white shirt with rolled sleeves. No tie, no corporate formality. Just him, genuine and present. They met beneath an arch of wildflowers Maribel had helped assemble. This time there was no judge or official celebrant. Lucian, as godfather, would officiate the simple ceremony. "Marienne and Ronan," Lucian began, his voice thick with emotion. "You are here today not because families arranged it, not because contracts demanded it, but because you chose it. Every day you choose this love, and that choice is what makes this marriage real." Ronan took Marienne's hands, Anne resting between the two of them. "Marienne, 3 years ago I married a stranger to fulfill a corporate obligation. Today I marry my best friend, the mother of my daughter, the woman who taught me that vulnerability is strength. I promise to choose you every day. I promise honesty, even when it hurts. I promise never again to place strategy above feelings. You and Anne are my home, my purpose, my chosen family." Marienne adjusted Anne in her arm and held Ronan's free hand. "Ronan, you taught me that people can change, that mistakes can be forgiven, that love can grow even from the most unlikely beginnings. I promise to keep choosing you. I promise to trust, even when it's hard. I promise to build this family with honesty and courage. The three of us, you, me, Anne, are proof that true love isn't about perfection. It's about conscious choice every single day. There were no new rings. They wore the original ones, now renewed in meaning. There was no cinematic kiss. Anne chose that moment to let out a sharp squeal that made everyone laugh. But when Ronan kissed Marienne's forehead, then Anne's, and whispered "my girls" with reverence that made Marienne's eyes shine, every person present felt the truth in the air. This was real family, real love, a real beginning again. The celebration was simple: a backyard barbecue, live music played by a string quartet Marienne knew from an old project, conversations stretching into sunset as the sky turned gold and rose. Alistair and Verena attended, surprisingly. Ronan's relationship with his parents was still tense but slowly healing. When Alistair held Anne for the first time, the hard, calculating man completely unraveled. "She is beautiful," he murmured, and for the first time, Marienne saw genuine humanity. In her father-in-law's eyes. "She is your granddaughter," Ronan said firmly, "and if you want to be part of her life, you will need to learn that family isn't about contracts. It's about love." Alistair only nodded, holding Anne with reverent care. When the guests finally left and Anne fell asleep after fierce resistance, Marienne and Ronan sat on the terrace, watching the stars appear over English Bay. "What are you thinking about?" Marienne asked, her head resting on his shoulder. "About how I almost destroyed all of this, if you hadn't given me a second chance. But I did, because I saw that the man who wrote that honest letter was who you truly were, and it was worth believing. Let's travel," Ronan said suddenly. "When Anne is older, Italy, Greece, Japan, show her the world. Travel sounds perfect. And maybe more children. Anne needs siblings." Marienne laughed. "She is 3 months old. Let's take our time." "We have time," Ronan agreed, kissing the top of her head. "We have the rest of our lives." And they did. Not the life planned in business contracts, not the life of social appearances and family obligations, but the life they chose to build together, authentic, imperfect, filled with real love. Shoreheart Ravencourt would continue to grow, reshaping the city with buildings that honored the planet. Anne would grow surrounded by unconditional love, learning early that family is defined by choice, not bloodlines or signatures. More children would come eventually. A boy named James, then twin girls, Lily and Rose, filling the glass mansion with laughter and scattered toys, and the kind of beautiful chaos only children can create. Hester would move permanently to Vancouver 2 years later, buying a charming cottage 10 minutes away, always present for breakfasts and emergency babysitting. Alistair and Verena would slowly learn to be grandparents, thawing decades of emotional coldness through the love of grandchildren who embraced them without hesitation. But that night, sitting beneath infinite stars with the soft hum of the ocean in the background, Marienne and Ronan simply existed together. Two strangers who became lovers. An arranged marriage that blossomed into true love. A business transaction that transformed into a real family. Marienne thought of the 26-year-old woman who had married out of obligation, hoping only to survive. A woman who never imagined that love could rise from such cold ashes, who did not believe that people could truly change. She had been wrong. People do change. When they choose to, when they try. When true love becomes more important than pride. "I love you," Ronan whispered in the dark. "I love you too. Every day I choose to love you." And that choice, renewed consciously every morning, every night, every difficult moment, was what turned contracts into commitments, obligations into offerings, strategies into surrender. Because true love, Marienne now understood completely, is not about how a story begins. It is about having the courage to keep writing the chapters that follow with fierce honesty and stubborn hope. It is about looking at the person beside you, with all their flaws, mistakes, and imperfections, and saying, "Yes, you, always you." It is about building a family not on foundations of blood or money or convenience, but on the daily deliberate choice to show up, to love, to forgive, to begin again. And when Anne woke at 3 in the morning crying, and Marienne and Ronan got up together, Not one of them, but both, always both now, when they held their daughter between them, rocking her gently while humming until she fell back asleep, when they returned to bed intertwined and exhausted but completely happy. In that moment, in a mansion that had ceased to be a mausoleum and had become a home, love chosen prevailed, and victory had never been so sweet. A story about how two strangers, married by contract, discovered that true love cannot be negotiated, only chosen. So, do you believe an arranged marriage can turn into true love? If you made it this far, leave your like, subscribe to the channel for more emotional stories like this one, and tell us in the comments what you thought about Marienne and Ronan's transformation. Don't forget to hype this story. It makes all the difference for us to keep bringing this content to you.